What's up guys and welcome to Emo Reg Origins. I'm going to be talking about every episode in Season 1, its paper version, its origin, and also talk about the differences between the animated version and the paper version. Let's get started. Episode 1, Talking is for Losers.
Because talking's for losers.
One of the major differences in episode 1 is that Emo's hair is completely different and Reg is wearing his hat forwards. The episode starts off with Emo about to shoot a bird. Yes, he's going to kill an animal. And Reg comes along and asks and tells him that he has an important question for him and asks him why you're always so quiet. And Emo answers, because talking's for losers. And Reg's like, you talk. And Emo's like, yes, that's right, folks. When I first made this episode, I made Emo swear. Let's move on to episode 2. Episode 2, Nickel Burger. Tell me about yourself. On the paper here, you'll be able to see that there's an EP3. That's because there are some episodes that didn't make it to being animated. And in the paper version of Emo and Reg, this was episode 3. It starts off, instead of the owner of Nickel Burger opening the window, he's actually opening the blinds. This also starts off with, so you want to apply for a job at McDonald's. That is also different. This episode started with McDonald's. Here's another difference. We also have Emo saying, yes, well, I like guns and shooting birds. Yes, he liked guns and shooting birds. I was young, guys, I was young. He also said, I like to be anime. We got the bird in love with him and the girl here. Oh my god, he's so hot! And the rest of us the same, except in this scene here, behind the desk, he's doing something there. Episode 3, Math. Everyone knows it's this simple. This episode is actually exactly the same. There's no difference here. Episode 4, Jimmy. Sup, girl? The only difference here is the girl that Jimmy points at. And later on here, Emo asks, you know that guy? But instead of Reg saying, yeah man, he's my bro, he just goes on to say, Emo here wants to tell you something. And then the rest of it is the same. Episode 5, Zombie Movie 4. It was just Jeff. I want to tell you that this episode was created before my name is Jeff was created, or was even a thing. This episode is pretty much the same. The only difference here is that Emo says, the graphics are too realistic. This is terrifying. These scenarios are way too realistic. And another difference is at the end, after Reg says, it was just Jeff, Emo says, oh thank God. I decided not to add that in the animated version. Episode 6, Summon Anything. Gold! What the? On the paper version, this is episode 10. And also, you may notice that under Emo and Reg, in the episode number, you may see by NitX Dog FlameX. That was my internet name back then. This episode is pretty much the same. Next episode, episode 7. That Ryan guy. We're made in Microsoft Paint. On the paper version of this, there's a huge difference with Ryan. Everything here is the same, except when Ryan says, you guys obviously don't want me here, do you? One of the hints is this giant sweat thing here. His line is a little different, and he doesn't actually point at Emo's giant sweat thing there when he says that. And another big difference is that instead of saying, we're made in Microsoft Paint, he says, there's a hole here. This is how he broke the fourth wall on the paper version. And then Reg goes on to say that he knows there's a hole there. And the rest of it is pretty much the same. Next episode! Wait a minute. What is that? Episode 8, Emo's Crush. Emo! I heard juicy stuff! The paper version of this episode starts off really different from the animated version. This episode starts off with Emo watching TV instead of having an inner monologue about pouring his milk into his bowl first before adding the cereal. But what if the world explodes? And then, when Emo asks Reg how he figure out he had a crush on Natalie, Reg simply responds with, I've done my research, with him thinking of Emo's diary that you can barely see there. And it cuts straight to, dude, I can help you get this chick. Emo figures out that he read his diary a little bit later on here. But also another big difference here in this episode is that when Reg says that he's a chick magnet, all of a sudden a chick appears at his feet saying, "Chirp, chirp, my brother." And as you could see, this is Chirp Chirp's first form. His character design was way different. But at the end, Reg says, "Man, she's cold." And just stops there. He doesn't even say, "Colder than the milk in my cereal." And that's it for Emo's Crush. Next episode! Episode 9, Woodworker Mack. This is Mack. He's a puppet and a really good woodworker. In this episode, the first difference is that Reg's face is different than what I made it to be in the animated version. Another thing difference is that when Reg screams and hides in the corner, he's actually sweating. And the rest is the same from there. At the end of this episode on the paper version, Reg says his strings aren't even attached to anything, they just float. And I didn't draw Mack with his strings just floating there. And that's it for this episode. Next episode, the season finale, Emo's Demon. What have you done? Ah! In this episode, the only thing that's different in this episode is that when Reg seems like he's about to get killed by this demon, Emo coughs and then says, "Reg, no." Ah! Reg, no! And another difference is that Emo says, "Huh?" instead of saying, "Huh? A wedgie." And the next difference in this episode is that instead of Reg saying, "Aw man, not cool, demon," Reg simply says, "Aw man," followed by the demon running off instead of shrugging. And those were the differences between the paper version of Emo and Reg, the first version, and the animated version, the final version. Comment down below your thoughts. Don't forget to leave a like. I'll see you guys next week when we go over the episodes that didn't make it to being animated in Season 1.